So what are these 5 things that seem to make a difference? Well, I'm going to go over each of them one at a time. When we first started, we said, well, first thing we might want to do is we have to have a change leader. And so what we have to do is pick somebody who has time on their hands. Duh. You know, I mean, you get what you pay for, right? I mean, if you pick a boy to do a man's job, if you pick a girl to do a woman's job, so to speak, then you aren't going to have somebody who has power, you aren't going to have somebody who has influence, you aren't going to have somebody who has prestige, and therefore they're not going to be able to push this thing ahead. Don Holloway, Don, where are you? Yeah, in the back, we'll be talking to you later on today, was VP at Stanford University Medical Center, and he ran the quality improvement program there. Don could call the CEO anytime, day and night. He could, at home. When Don would talk, everybody in Stanford University Hospital knew that Don was speaking for the CEO. That makes a difference. But when we first started in this field, we didn't think it made a difference. And so one key thing is who's the person you're assigning to lead change. If that person has power, prestige, influence, and empathy for the staff, that makes a difference. Second thing, picking the right problem. A team of people, researchers led by Jerry Haig a few years ago looked at the factors that differentiate successful from unsuccessful staff organizations. And what they found was that the organizations that were really successful in improving were organizations that they called penetrated the agenda of the elite. Now that's cute. It's what you'd expect out of business professors. What it means to an engineer is that they thought about what keeps the CEO awake at night, and that's the problems that they concentrated on. No yawners, no trivial problems. Pick things that are important, that if they're improved, it makes a difference. And yet so often in quality improvement, we don't do that. And one of the challenges for us in Paths to Recovery is to make sure that the processes that we work on are processes that, if fixed, are really going to improve access. Third thing, and this is going to be a tough one for you folks because you are different. The audience of patients that you treat are very often patients who don't want to be there. That's very unlike many organizations. And yet every industry feels they're different. Every industry feels they're unique. And yet what has been shown as the second most important predictor of organizational success is the extent to which the organization is willing to reach outside the boundaries of not only their own organization, but literally their industry to get ideas for improvement. How could that possibly be? Why would it make sense for you guys to go to the cement industry to figure out how to improve intake? I mean, why would that make much more sense than talking to another substance abuse treatment agency? Why would that be the case? Yeah.
Because cement dries quickly. If you don't deal with it right away and put it where it's supposed to be when it's dry, it doesn't do its job.
I mean, that's so neat because that's exactly what needs to happen as you do this. What you need to look at is not exactly the solution. So cement dries quickly, so you have to figure out what the processes are to make it function effectively. And in doing that, you might learn something brand new that you never would have thought of by looking, again, at sort of variants on the same process that you've been using. When we were developing a computer system to help women choose between whether to have a lumpectomy or a mastectomy after breast cancer diagnosis, we went to the recruitment coordinator for the University of Wisconsin football team. And we went to Jerry Fishbane, who had seen 8 different football coaches, all of them losing except for Barry Alvarez, who is our current coach. And we said to him, Jerry, what makes Barry so good? And Jerry said, the thing that he can do is he can see and pick out the unique capabilities and weaknesses of his players, and he designs his offense around those unique capabilities. He doesn't have a one-size-fits-all. And so we sat back and we said, what's the message to us? And the message was, let's make sure we don't have an educational program that's one-size-fits-all. Let's make sure that it's adapted. The point is that the real advice and the real impact and the real creativity that you get in problem solving comes from reaching outside the boundaries of your industry and looking for organizations that have some variant, a lot of variation, but some similarities to what you guys do. Fourth factor is insisting on doing it right. That sounds trivial, but one of the things, again, that we used to do in quality improvement was we would work for 9 months trying to figure out the perfect solution to a particular problem, and then we would go out and implement it, and sometimes it would fall flat on its face. Now the movement aims at what's called rapid cycle improvement, where what you do is first you get the organization used to changing. So you say, next Tuesday, change something. Whatever you do, just get used to changing something around maybe the process that you think is really important, but go out and do something. And maybe do it with just one patient and one counselor. But try it with them so you can figure out what doesn't work. Adapt it, change it again. Maybe now with 2 counselors and 2 patients. Now change it again, maybe with 10 counselors and 100 patients. And that rapid cycle improvement turns out to be something that you guys have been doing for years with your patients. But finally, if you take all of the predictive power of all 79 variables that have been studied in these 640 organizations, including the 4 I just mentioned, but all the others too, and you add up all that predictive power, turns out it doesn't equal the predictive power of the last factor. One factor is more predictive of organizational success than all the other 79 factors that have been studied in these collaborative organizations, and that is the extent to which you understand who your customer is, what your customer needs, and how they make their buying decisions. But the key element in this is that you assume you don't know. That you assume, when you start this, you assume you don't know what their problems are, and you go back and again you revisit. Again you walk in their shoes. Again you involve them. And that's going to be tough, especially in an industry where many of your counselors are recovering chemically dependent people. And so who would know, I mean, how would they ever sit back and say, I don't know what they need when they've been there? But in reality, what the literature says in every industry that's been studied is that you need to walk in the shoes of the customer over and over and over again and assume that you don't understand what they need. Because when you do that, when you take the time to walk in their shoes, you begin to discover some things that you've never understood before. You also need to involve your customers in prototype testing and solution development and things like that. But the key thing is to be willing to step back and say, again, I need to walk in the shoes of my customers.